as it is the final day of July. August tomorrow, as you know, time just keeps on ticking. To think tonight is the Hall of Fame game, NFL, which nobody's going to watch. Certainly, yours truly will be nowhere near that NBC broadcast. And I know they're plugging it today on the Today Show. And I tell you, football is the furthest thing from my mind. Obviously, baseball is front and center. Lots to discuss here on the podcast. This podcast pregame live stream. And for what we've seen here, up until about maybe 3 p.m. yesterday, this MLB trade deadline looked like it was going to be the trade deadline, or even flat line for that matter. But since about 3 p.m. yesterday, it has certainly taken off. And obviously last night we got the big surprise where Eugenio Suarez, which a lot of people thought he was going to be gone, knowing that he is a free agent, that the Diamondbacks are going nowhere, that obviously they've already been selling some of their players, Josh Naylor in particular, among others, and then now Suarez out as he goes to Seattle. And Seattle's made some moves here. Also Caleb Ferguson, some relief help. Who knows if they're going to go in another direction to maybe bring in, let's say, more relief, because we know their starting pitching is very solid. But the Mariners, it is time for them to make a move, and they certainly did so in a big way by getting Suarez and a guy that they could just add to that lineup to go along with Naylor, to go along with Cal Raleigh, and to a lesser degree, Julio Rodriguez. But for Seattle making the big splash there last night, and obviously with the Yankees getting Ryan McMahon, who was the hero last night, and a big win for the Yankees. That would have been a brutal loss. Devin Williams, a walk and a home run, 3-2 when they were up 2-1 in the ninth. And they were able to save his face, considering that would have been just a brutal loss for the Yankees. They would have lost a game in the standings with Toronto winning yesterday. But for the Mariners, it's just a huge win. Now let's see, with the injury that he has, he got hit the other night on I believe it was on his index finger, which the x-rays were negative. So they still have to go through a physical. Let's see how that unfolds. But I would think this trade's going to go through. And therefore, the Mariners look like they're ready to make a move here. And not just for the division. They are 4 games back, I believe, as of right now, behind the Houston Astros. But for them, with their rotation and with their bullpen, and now they're going to they added 2 pieces to their offense and their lineup. Not to say that they're going to be on the fast track to an ALCS or a World Series, but they certainly put themselves in great position now, and kudos to them. And then you had earlier yesterday where right around mid-afternoon to late evening, you had the Mets trade for Tyler Rogers sent to the Giants, where Rogers is a guy that has that submarine motion, very hard to pick up, good piece. They gave up a lot, though, and I guess the Met hierarchy probably was not in favor of Drew Gilbert and his progression here over the last couple of years. Remember, Drew Gilbert was the guy that got in the trade for Justin Verlander when they shipped him to Houston 2 years ago, right before the deadline. And Gilbert was supposed to be a big piece. As you recall, when the Mets traded Max Scherzer to the Rangers, they got Luis Angel Acuna. So a lot of people thought Acuna and Gilbert, 2 big pieces for the Met future. And now Gilbert out as he gets shipped to the Giants, which, who knows? Listen, these outfielders, whether your name is even Jared Kelenic. Now, we get it, Pete Crow-Armstrong, understood, but remember, he was drafted by the Mets there in, 2020, and they traded him for Javi Baez, where Gilbert, obviously, they got him from the Astros. So all I could say is that, let's see, hopefully it doesn't come back to haunt where you got a guy like Gilbert, and the Mets need a center fielder in the worst way, and maybe like I mentioned, his progression was way too slow, so they felt, let's get Rogers, which to me is a bit of a risk from this regard. I mean, he is a rental. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I could see if they had a year and a half left, then I could say, all right, well, in that case, I could see why they had to give up a little bit more in order to get Rogers. But as a rental, to me, that was a bit of a shock. And I don't know how Gilbert has done in the minor leagues, but he certainly hasn't lit up whether it's single A, double A, even triple A. I don't even think he's up at triple A, but he has not lit the minors on fire. So therefore, the Mets thought, hey, he's expendable, and if we need this bullpen piece, why not? So, and then later on, the Phillies answered back with a touche by getting Joan Duran from the Twins, and they gave up a couple of big pieces in their own right. They gave up a catching prospect who's 18 years old. I believe his name is Eduardo Tate. And it's supposed to be a frontline prospect. And they also traded Mick Abel, who's had a cup of coffee with the Phillies this year. So Duran, who has a live arm, big-time fastball, also a curve, and they needed it in a worse way. Remember last year they traded for Carlos Estevez from the Angels, and that didn't work out. And it was a situation where they still needed bullpen help, despite the fact that they have a very good starting rotation. And now with Duran in the mix in Philadelphia, it certainly gives them the guy that they need at the back of the bullpen. But the Mets answered with another touche by bringing in Ryan Helsley, the closer from the Cardinals. And Helsley's a guy that he could scare you. He does have a live arm, but he's a guy, if you look back, yes, baseball purist, my guy. Now, you were right about Helsley, and I'm sure you're happy about that. Now, let's see if the other two deals come to fruition here between now and 6 p.m. Mets making moves. Are pen mightier than the sword? Yes, and mightier than the Philly sword, that's for sure. And I like that the Mets are aggressive here because now you got your 7th inning guy in Rogers, your 8th inning guy in none other than Helsley, and then, of course, Diaz in the 9th. And then if you want those Stanek is your 6th inning, because you know these pitchers don't go past 5, or if they do, they're going to go 5 1/3, 5 2/3. So Met pitchers are not going to go 6 innings plus. If that's the case, that would be the great recipe. Starters go 6, hand it to Rogers, Helsley, and then Diaz to close out the game. But I like what they've done. Helsley scares me a little bit. He does, when you look at his track record in big games, big spots. I remember a couple years ago when they played in the wild card against the Phillies, he gave up a ton of runs there late in the game. And, right, you could say, well, that was 2-3 years ago, JAYREELZ. I mean, why are you going to get wrapped up in that? This is this year. I understand, but sometimes you are the back of your baseball card. And baseball purists, you know well, Armando Benitez. I mean, he's a guy that could get all the saves you could even ask for from April to early September. But once you get to September and October, it's implosion city. So, and I'm not trying to say Helsley's going to go down that same route. Maybe change the scenery in the thick of a pennant race. If anything, how I look at Duran is a guy going to Philadelphia, Minnesota. Everybody's looking at Viking football right now, where there's no pressure there in the Twin Cities. Now he's going to Philadelphia in a hotbed where he blows his first game, let's say in the next week. They're going to be booing him and they're going to pound him in the media. And Helsley's a guy that, who knows, plays in St. Louis, which they don't boo anybody. Obviously, their attendance has weaned here over the last few years. It's gone from 40,000 in 2022 to now like their average is 25, 26. And it's a scenario where Helsley in a big spot, let's say 8th inning, and the Mets are up 4-3 and he gives up 3 runs. He's going to start feeling some heat and some boos, and you got to wonder what his psyche's about. So that is just my point, because now they're going from the frying pan into the fire. And for Helsley, listen, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's successful. But we'll monitor this as we go along. But the Met bullpen certainly has made some big-time upgrades here. And you want to add in Gregory Soto. How can you forget that? But Soto's going to be more of a guy, I would think, will come in where you have lefties in the lineup, with, Schwarber, Harper here down the stretch. Or when they play against teams like that have left-handed hitting, and even Brooks Raley, another guy who could come out of the pen left-handed. But right now, you can't argue what they've done here as far as the bullpen. Now, I'm curious, baseball purists, what do you feel about Drew Gilbert? Now, I understand that Gilbert seems like he wasn't lighting the world on fire in the minors, but remember, we got him for Justin Verlander 2 years ago. A lot of people thought he was going to be our guy in the future, outfielder, center fielder, etc. And with the Mets needing a center fielder, they gave up on him way too soon. Now, again, I'm not monitoring what's happening in Syracuse, or he's not even playing in Syracuse, whether it's in Port St. Lucie, single A, double A. But for the Mets to give up on him now, and it's not as if Tyler Rogers is Kent Tekulve, if I take you all the way back. So I'm curious to know your thoughts about Gilbert and trading away what we thought was going to be a big piece of our future. Now he's going to be in San Francisco. So you had some big trades there yesterday, and I know you got some minor trades too, with Steven Matz going to the Red Sox, and I mentioned Caleb Ferguson going to the Mariners as they try to secure that bullpen. And let's see what's going to happen today with the likes of Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. Who else is on that list? Maybe Duran from the Red Sox. He could be moved, although the Red Sox are right now in the middle of things. But who knows? If they get a decent haul back, it's something that they probably will entertain. Missing a couple people. I don't know. Will the Angels deal Kenley Jansen? I know the Angels may think they're in the middle of it, and they traded for 2 relievers yesterday. So who knows if that's going to be a scenario where they're going to either add or maybe subtract. I would think they're going to add. What are they, about 4.5 games back? Tyler Rogers is no stranger to the Padres and Dodgers. He's lights out. And listen, that's one thing. You like that delivery he has. Very deceptive. Killer to right-handed batters. I'm all for it. And they certainly needed that. And like you said, Helsley's a hard thrower to go along with Soto. I mean, they've done phenomenal here. Now, Cedric Mullins is the other guy I'm thinking of too, right here at the deadline, considering that the Mets need a center fielder. The thing is, he has pop, but he is not hit well. He's batting .210 last I checked, somewhere in that vicinity. And he's also a rental, so I don't know what the Mets are going to give up there. But I'm not giving up the farm, or I'm not giving up anything of significance, if you ask me. But when you have a situation where the Mets are going to look to upgrade here, as you know, I'd have to say it's wide open. Dodgers, if they come back fully healthy with everybody, with Blake Snell, who I believe is going to come back this weekend, and the likes of Tyler Glasnow, if he can stay healthy. We know about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I mean, he's been healthy too. He's been in the rotation, and guys like Blake Trinan and Michael Kopech, who have been on the IL seems like forever. So if they come back healthy, they're going to be the favorite. Now, if they're going to be the team that they are at this current moment, who knows? Anybody could pick them off. And the Mets did well against them this year. They did win 4 of 7. I mean, the games were close. Mets could have actually swept them in L.A. when you think about it, but they blew a couple of games there late. And again, regular season is not going to translate to October, I understand. But I don't think the Mets are going to be shaking in their boots looking at the other side with Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar. Tommy Edman was the NLCS MVP last year. So, yeah, I think they will go to battle in another LCS if that's the case. But I really think baseball is wide open this year. American League, forget about it. I mean, anybody could come out of that. Would I be shocked if the Astros came out again? Would I even be shocked if the Mariners, considering what the moves that they've made? Detroit, obviously won't be shocked, but would I be shocked if they get bounced in the ALDS? No. So, at least for right now, it seems like it could be wide open. You may have, I don't know if the Brewers are going to be able to progress. And the Brewers haven't really done much here. They look like they're going to stand pat unless they got something up their sleeve here over the next, 8 hours. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to unfold between now and then. I would think maybe a bunch of minor moves, unless somebody's going to go for a guy like Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly. I would like to see, come to think of it, if there's a team, would the Tigers do something like that? Probably not. And the Tigers, listen, they're a good market. They're not a small market. They're not Cleveland. They're not Miami. They're not Pittsburgh. And I understand they're in that Midwest region clustered with Kansas City and Cleveland, et cetera. But, the Tigers in the past, they've spent money. Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, before that, Juan Gonzalez, dating back to 2000. So it's not as if they're shy to pull the trigger on a deal or to sign somebody long-term. Javi Baez, for instance, 6 years, $140 million. So I have a new prediction. Now, I heard stuff about Severino, too. It's funny you mentioned him. Mason Miller. Now, the Mets get Mason Miller. Now, Vientos, Beatty. I wouldn't trade Mauricio. To me, it's too much upside. Vientos is going to end up being a DH or a first baseman. And I like Vientos, and Beatty, now can Mauricio play third? I mean, that's the big thing. But I like that prediction. I don't know if the A's are going to be willing to part just yet. Maybe with Sevy, because they gave him, 3 years, $69 million or whatever it was. So 2 more years. Obviously, he knows New York. Adds another arm to that rotation. Mason Miller, though. If it's going to be Sevy and Mason Miller to the Mets, but who'd you give up, though? McNeil, Beatty, Mauricio to the Astros. For who? McNeil, Beatty, and Mauricio to the Astros. If I had to take a guess, let me see. Well, it's not going to be Hunter Brown. Well, I don't even want to hear Framber Valdez either, because Valdez, he's a free agent after this year too. So I'm not giving up that much for a guy who I understand is good, and he's very good. All three to the Astros. For who, though? It better not be Framber Valdez. To me, that's a steep price. And I don't think the Astros would do that if it is Valdez. I'm just throwing Valdez out there because he's a free agent at the end of the year, and they want to get something in return. Obviously, the Kyle Tuckers and the Alex Bregmans, they got nothing in return. Well, Tucker was a trade. They did get players back. But all three to the Astros for who, though? Ain't going to be Hader. Ain't going to be, like I said, Hunter Brown. They're not going to trade for a guy like Jeremy Pena. It's not Yordan Alvarez, of course. So I'm curious to know who they would trade him for. But, yeah, let's see what happens here. You know, I'll be on top of it. I'll post. Obviously, I'm going to record in a few minutes the latest podcast. Sammy Miller for 2030 ranked pitcher. So, wait, so you're talking about Brandon Sproat then? Not rumored. Yeah, I would think they'd have to give up Sproat. Yeah, not Christian Scott. He's coming off of Tommy John. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, purist. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, this has picked up a lot over the last, whatever it is, 20 hours or so. Sprout's top 5. You know, I get that, but I'm thinking 20 to 30 prospect ranked pitcher. So I'm thinking if Sprout is top 5, Sprout's got to be somewhere between 20 and 30 overall in baseball. Or unless you're saying 20, 30 prospect ranked pitcher. So, yeah, the only reason why I brought up Sprout is because when you said 20th, 30th prospect ranked pitcher, if it's ranked pitcher, all right, fine. I was thinking 20 to 30 ranked prospect, top 100 overall, where Sprout would probably be in that range. That's the only reason why I mentioned him. But, yeah, let's see what happens today. I'll be on it. I'll throw some shorts today. Obviously, I should have thrown some shorts last night about the Met and Philly deals. And Suarez was late last night, so I didn't even get to post anything today. Obviously, I'll have the podcast. I'll post something maybe before I record, even though I got this live up. But I know you're the only one that's on here so far, so I appreciate that, purist. So, of course, thanks for stopping by. But, yeah, I'll talk baseball. I'll talk some... No, I did not see that. Did that just happen? Let me see. Wow, that's a big pickup for the Blue Jays. And is Bieber... Hold on. Let me refresh this page. Shane Bieber. I wonder what they gave up for him. Yeah, reportedly close to acquiring Bieber. Cal Steven, Guardians. Oh, 1-for-1. Pitching prospect. Now, the thing about Bieber, 2 year. Oh, so he has another year left. So that's good. If he has another year left, yeah, he's grabbing from Tommy John. Now, Tigers acquired Paul Sewald, I see. Astros interested in Cantara. And Dylan Cease, Astros? Yeah, Cease you could keep. What else here? Yeah, let's see what you're on. Yeah, if Bieber to the Blue Jays, that would be interesting because I don't even know. I guess he probably would be. Yeah, starting a rehab assignment. Yeah, I don't know how he would perform here down the stretch as Toronto's trying to make a push here. But, yeah, this is going to be fascinating to say the least how this is all going to shake down here. Obviously, I'll be on top of it, as you know. And yeah, I'll talk a little football. I'll talk a little basketball. Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors. I understand it's not going to move the needle, but that's pretty much the only thing that's going on. I'll even touch on a little WNBA for those interested as I try to get myself acclimated with the W. And yeah, it's going to be a baseball dominant podcast here without question. And of course, on Monday's podcast pregame, I'll pull a name out of the hat to see who will be my guest for next Wednesday's live stream. And that should be a lot of fun as we move that along in the weeks to come, starting the month of August. I know the final day of July already. The summer's just zooming by. You got the Hall of Fame game tonight, which I could care less about. So, yeah, we got a lot to discuss here. Mostly baseball, and then obviously the stuff that's happened off the field that I hadn't talked about since Monday. Austin Wells getting picked. Oh, my God. Was that awful? No, well, what happened was, Pyrrhus was, who was up at that time? Somebody hit a ground ball, and he thought it was 1 out. And then, for whatever reason, he was going back to first base, and therefore, they got him in a rundown, and that was it. Yeah, the Yankees are a mess. And they got, oh, man, I won't say lucky. I know Volpe hit the home run, another error last night. Yeah, the Yankees, to me, it's all about the manager. I've said it a million times, and for that falls on the first base coach. That doesn't fall on Boone. I mean, Boone has to relay that and say, hey, 1 out. And for whatever the reason, he thought it was 2 outs, and that was just an awful play for Wells to get caught in a rundown there. And as it was, the Yankees prevailed. They won in 11. And let's see, hopefully the Rays can split the series today as they'll go to Miami over the weekend. And even though Miami's playing pretty well, listen, if the Marlins win 1 game, I wouldn't be shocked at this point because the Yankees, they seem to be off kilter. And I know that place is going to be invaded by Yankee fans, more so when the Mets play down there. So that's going to be an interesting series, but we shall see. The Yankees, I'm going to talk about them a little bit on the podcast too because they got away with one there last night. And to think Devin Williams gave up that home run. Oh, yeah. Well, no, but they also should have let Volpe, if you saw Tuesday night. Did you see Tuesday night? I know he had 2 errors in that game. Or I think he had 2 errors. But he also had that pop-up. Did you see that? I think it was like in the 4th inning. There was a pop. He had a runner on first, nobody out, and he had a pop-up. And it went to him, and then he purposely dropped it. Now, he did it on purpose to try to get a double play, but the umpire ruled the batter out. So even with no infield fly rule. But what are you doing? Boone right there should have pulled him aside when he got to the dugout and said, I'm sitting you out. No time to be cute. No time for shenanigans. I understand what you were trying to do, but But Boone's not going to do that. Boone he's a babysitter. More than a manager. And it's just terrible. And I know the Yankee fans discussed it. And listen, we've seen it a million times with him. There's a zillion examples we could go by. Whether it's Gleyber Torres. I understand he pulled him in a game last year, but it took him a half an inning to do so. And yeah, he's the prototypical player's manager. And listen, I get it. You don't want to be against your players. You don't want to rub the wrong way on your players. But you got to have, as I've said a million times, and that goes for any coach, any manager in any sport, you got to have a little asshole in you. You got to say, hey, you're sitting the pine the rest of this game. I don't want to hear it. And let him try to state his case. Let him try to debate, whatever. No, sit. And then when you face the media, because you know the media's going to get after you, face the media and say, hey, I see you sat down Anthony Volpe. Why? He needed to sit. I didn't like that. Trying to misplay that pop-up to get a double play. No. Make the play and that's it. Don't try to be cute there. So he needed a lesson. And you know what? He's not playing tomorrow either. So let him learn his lesson. The kid's 23 years old. He's not a guy that is going to be a part of the team, so we think, in the future. And for Boone to just play it off like nothing and say, oh, he's coming around and yeah, he's bounced a couple of the throws. He's an apologist for his players, which is just awful. I mean, come on. Oh, that's what it was. Yes, Grisham had the drag bunt. Thank you. He had the drag bunt, stepped on first, and then for whatever the reason, I mean, jeez. And to think they had the winning run on second, and it could have lost the game. I understand the next batter was what? Who was your two-hitter last night? Ben Rice? Oh, no, I think he was pitching for Goldschmidt, wasn't he? So, yeah. But, yeah, just a joke. Absolutely. Yeah, you saw that too? Yeah, with the drop. I mean, come on. What are we doing? And that's why I don't think the Yankees, listen, could they get hot? Could they get to a World Series? The American League, you know, is wide open. Do you completely trust the Tigers? I don't. Do you completely trust the Astros? I don't. And at the same time, you can't trust the Yankees either. That's why I think it's wide open this year to get to a World Series on both sides. And I understand the National League is stronger. Phillies, Dodgers, Mets, even to a certain degree, Padres. Brewers, Brewers to me are a regular season team. But, right, when it's all said and done, would you be shocked? Could you imagine this? A Seattle-Milwaukee World Series? Ugh. Who the hell will watch that? Yeah, that'd be brutal. And purist, JAYREELZ podcast, the JAYREELZ podcast at gmail.com. Send me your address. Or unless you want to meet up somewhere sometime, you can spare me the postage. Not that it matters, it's a few bucks, but and I could get your cap to you. But that's what I have. I don't know, anything else you want me to discuss for the podcast there, purist? Which will probably be out at this point at 10:07 by the time I record, edit, video, post, probably by 1 the latest. So, yeah, I'll keep everybody up to date on what's happening. Let me see if anything else has happened here. Mason Miller unavailable tonight, not injured. So I guess he wasn't available. Ooh, what does that mean? Yeah, I think that's it for the trades or anything up to date. Yeah, it looks like the Bieber trade, yep. Bengal sign. Noah Font. Well, big whoop. He's not that player, but. All right, baseball purists, let me get to work here. I appreciate you hopping on board as always. Thank you so much. And yeah, podcast coming at you, 1 o'clock, Apple, Spotify, the website, jayreels.com, of course, right here on YouTube. And Monday, podcast, pregame. We'll do the drawing for Wednesday's guest, among what's going to happen over the weekend, kind of recap. I understand it'll be 3 days later, but definitely check the channel today for updates on trades, on what's going on and what's happening. I'll share my thoughts, opinions, critiques, analysis, everything on what's going to transpire here between now and 6 p.m. So definitely keep yourself attuned to that. But otherwise, let me get cracking here recording this podcast. Baseball purists, I thank you. And stay cool. Not as bad as yesterday, the last 3 days, but still going to be warm and humid now. I'm going for a run later, right after I record the podcast and put it on my socials, etc. So, as always, from the South Bronx, South Beach, South Central, South Pacific, and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. Enjoy your day. Let's see what's going to happen here in baseball and sports, among other things. And until next time, on the flip, baby.